All right, how are we doing? It is Larsen Live. It is, what the hell date is it? The 12th of December. That was not Holst, actually. That was Dvorak. Dvorak's Symphony number 9, fourth movement. Because, like I said, you heathens need some culture. I do like Holst myself, but maybe we'll play him another time. And yeah, first of all, anybody who says that classical music is boring, they need to be gently punched in the face because I'm sick of that shit. Secondly, yes, I did have to be forcibly taught to pronounce Dvorak properly, but that's a whole different story. That is also the theme song of Walter Hahn, for those of you who like the wrestling. Slightly strange considering that Mr. Hahn is, as far as I'm aware, from Austria and Dvorak was Czech. But I must say, I like the thought of big, sloppy, fat guys coming back to professional wrestling. And he is a hell of an athlete too. He was a pro soccer player, if I recall. Yeah, I call it soccer. Deal with it, Europeans. Yeah, I shouldn't call him a sloppy fat guy. He's a strong fat guy. Strong fat, one word. I should clarify. I only like the sloppy fat guys that are actual, athletes that can actually move. Not just fat guys who have no moves beyond falling down and shoving people. Okay, and yeah, speaking of wrestling, Jim Tooner says Sergeant Slaughter worked in the death camps. It all makes sense now. That's actually not Sergeant Slaughter. That is Movie Bob. That's Movie Bob during one of his embarrassing little pictures of him. I assume dressing up for Halloween. I mean, it might just be him dressing up alone in his house because he's a sad, sad little man. And by sad little man, I mean sad, extremely large, fat man. But yeah, going back to professional wrestling, like I said, I like seeing sloppy fat men in wrestling. Not for myself, of course, but amongst my pro wrestling personalities, I no desire to be a sloppy fat man myself. I mean, the fattest I ever got was about 230 pounds when my foot was broken, and I was sitting on my ass for 6 months. It wasn't fun, but for wrestling, it's cool. I don't like the idea of every pro wrestler being a pretty boy underwear model in black trunks and boots. All right, and speaking of wrestling, YouTube is offering Ready to Rumble as a free movie. Yeah, I'm totally going to watch that. Not. Yeah, I have no idea what they were thinking with that one. Turner Broadcasting or whoever it was. Yeah, let's make a movie about wrestling, which the two wrestling fan protagonists are the biggest dipshits in the world. That'll attract the wrestling fans. For those of you who haven't seen that movie, the first time we see fucking David Arquette, he's sticking his own finger up his ass, which should set the tone for the 90 minutes of garbage you're in for. Yeah, that's a movie Rose McGowan leaves off the resume. Not so much because it sucks, even though it absolutely does, but because it probably reminds her of a time when she worked her way up the ladder by slobbering on that Weinstein dick. Yeah, the Dvorak song that I opened up with, because I like to pretend that I'm a cultured gentleman when, really my temperament kind of varies between, spastic nerd and like shaved yeti. But anyway, yeah, that song almost reminds me of Bernard Herrmann's score for the Sinbad movies for some reason. Dvorak was a romantic nationalist, and most film composers, or at least the ones that aren't terrible, were heavily influenced by the Romantics, Wagner in particular. The good film composers, by which I mean, Miklos Rosa, Alfred Newman, Basil Polidorus, definitely not Hans Zimmer. I take that back. Hans Zimmer was once a good composer, like 20 years ago. I mean, he's been phoning it in for most of my adult life, but he does have talent when he wants to, which he rarely does. I'm just saying, you'll never hear Basil Polidorus doing trombone fart music, I'll tell you that much. Okay, let's see. We have some chats here. C Punk Messiah says, I honestly wonder how you get into the actual Black Dragon Fighting Society. Uh, I have no idea. I mean, I know you can basically buy diplomas from them that say, you are a master of such and such martial art, but how to get in, I have no idea. I mean, Count Dante is long dead, so I guess he would only know, the arcane secrets. He also says classical music is great. Yes, it certainly is. Okay, and Jim, I guess, is referring to the David Arquette oil checking. Well, here's the thing. He wasn't wrestling in that scene. He was sticking his finger up his ass to get, like, free Slurpees from a convenience store. God, I fucking hate that movie so much. Ready to Rumble. Boy. Yes, but sadly now we must stop talking about music and terrible movies and talk about some bad people. Amos Yee, the virtuous pedophile, in quotes, in my bullet points here, was found out to be a non-virtuous pedophile, which is to say, a pedophile. He is facing some prison time for possession of the CP and grooming a child. And, wow. Who would have thought that a guy who claimed to be a non-offending pedophile, only into the lolicon, turned out to be an offending pedophile? And no, Richard Spencer, there's no such thing as ethically sourced CP. I mean, he did say some shit like that, right? Old Dickie boy. I mean, I'm not just imagining that. He definitely did mention, like, ethically sourced, child pornography at some point. Yeah, if somebody could find me an example of an actual virtuous pedophile, yeah, please show me, because I've yet to see one. If you truly are a virtuous pedophile, I do feel for you. Like, I'm not a monster. I have sympathy for you. But you gotta understand, pal, there's a very good reason why you're a social pariah. And honestly, I think you just have to accept that your life is going to be lonely and miserable. And, I'm sorry, that's the breaks for being born a nonce. I wish I could tell you something different, but, I mean, I assume nobody listening to this is a pedo, but in case you are, you do understand why nobody would ever want to associate with you, correct? In all honesty, if I were a pedophile, even a virtuous one, I'd stick a shotgun in my mouth and I'd be thankful for it. I mean, being a pedo isn't like being gay where, nobody's getting hurt. Well, unless you want to, of course. But no, by definition, a pedophile fulfilling his or her sexual desire, and yeah, I said her for a reason. But yeah, I mean, a pedophile is, by definition, hurting somebody when he fulfills he or her sexual desire. Because, I hate that shit where it's like, hey man, I wish I got, molested by some older woman. No, fuck you. I mean, yeah, I slept with some older women when I was, in my college years, but that's not me as a child. And yeah, honestly, if you were a pedophile and you did, try to be virtuous, I mean, wouldn't you kind of want to die at that point? I mean, I hate to sound callous, but I'm just saying, if I was a pedophile and, I didn't want to, like, I was really trying to not molest kids, I might just stick a gun in my mouth. I mean, it's kind of like being in a zombie movie or something, like where somebody gets infected by the zombie and, they got to put them out of their misery before they start infecting other people. And yeah, I know I'm not the first person to compare pedophilia to zombiedom, but I think the point still stands. All right, in corporate news, the Kellogg's Corporation was apparently demanding its workers work 16-hour shifts during the ongoing pandemic. The workers went on strike asking for higher pay to compensate for this. Kellogg's responded by firing 1,400 people. Just bravo. Bravo, America, corporate America. Serfdom is coming back. I mean, you want to live in medieval times because we're fucking doing it. Actually, no, you know what? I take that back. We're actually worse off than the medieval serfs because at least a serf could own his own fucking house. Now, granted, that house would have been a wattle and daub hut made of animal dung that you have to build for yourself. But I mean, shit, people nowadays could never even dream about owning a house. So I think it's a trade-off. I mean, I think it's a lateral movement at best. Okay, C-Punk Messiah says if he, meaning David Arquette, wanted a free Slurpee, all he had to do was wheeze the juice. I have no idea what that means. Please inform me what that is. Actually, I'm going to go Urban Dictionary that right now. Okay, we used to just drink soda and Slurpee straight from the nozzle. I feel like that's wildly unsanitary, to be honest. I mean, have you ever... Does the average 7-Eleven look like a particularly sanitary place? I mean, probably not, but then again, those 7-Elevens near me are better than the gas station where I got a sandwich once that was covered in mold, and I didn't notice until I bit into it and promptly spat it out. So, yeah, that was kind of my lesson. I don't eat gas station food anymore. So I guess 7-Eleven has a point over the gas stations. But yeah, go back to the neo-serfdom we're about to be living in. I have said it before, and I've said it again. I'm a man who supports organized labor, and I will fight for it. I have been a wage slave. I know what it's like. And again, American culture at its height of prosperity and productivity, confidence, and yes, cultural output, happened to be a time when we had immigration quotas, strong organized labor, affordable housing, and high wages for the working man. But I'm sure it's just a complete coincidence that the American mid-century is constantly demonized and disparaged. I mean, it couldn't have anything to do with the fact that our overlords want to distract us from how things were better back then and distract us from our ever-worsening working conditions, wages, and housing conditions. I mean, that's just a complete coincidence, I'm sure. Yep. 16-hour days, 5 days a week. That's 80 hours a week. Yeah, no, just FYI. Even slaves in the antebellum South didn't work that many hours a week. Or it's either on par or slightly more than what slaves in the antebellum South were working. You can quote me on that. But yeah, fuck Kellogg's and fuck their breakfast products. Only a peasant eats cold gruel for breakfast. I mean, that's what cereal is. It's glorified gruel. Gotta get some real food. Slice off a hunk of sharp cheese, get a piece of fruit, some black coffee, and Larsen's ready for his day, god damn it. Except for days I go to the gym, then I pull out the full stops. Bacon, eggs, and homemade hash browns. The full English breakfast, except without the toast and beans and blood sausage, which the roast beefs do for some inane reason, because English people can't eat anything that isn't brown garbage. Speaking of brown garbage, I will never understand the purpose of gravy. If you need to slather your food in gravy, maybe you need to learn how to cook, because I don't need, like, brown sewage filth on my food, damn it. Okay, Valentina says, cyberpunk peasantry serfdom is not what my future would be. Not what you thought it would be. Yeah, I didn't really expect it to be this way either. But here we are. Being that I am a semi-successful musician and music teacher, I guess I would barely be like an artisan in this, like, neo-serfdom that we're going to be living in. So, sucks for you peasants. I got like a skilled trade, kind of. But yeah, fucking Kellogg's. Stupid breakfast cereal intended to not make people jack off. Or to make people not jack off, I should say. Gotta get those conjunctions right. Yeah, look up the history of cornflakes if you want to see some goofy shit. I mean, I'm moderately no fat myself. Having a new lady in my life who is sexually pretty insatiable, that helps with that. I mean, what? Yes, but John Kellogg was a puritanical lunatic. Also a eugenicist with an enema fetish. Yeah, he was an early supporter of germ theory, which is a point in his favor, but, even a stopped clock is right twice a day. I mean, he's still going to go down in history as the weird, masturbatory cornflake man. Just like poor old Frederick Wortham. You can prosecute serial killers, you can do great work in desegregating the army, but you're always going to be that jack-off comic book guy. Yep, there I go, disparaging the eugenicists. I mean, it's all about dysgenics nowadays, that's where it's at. I mean, that's basically what modern society promotes, isn't it? I mean, I've honestly been thinking lately, what if we paid the losers of society to get vasectomies, or whatever? I mean, technically it wouldn't be eugenics since it would be voluntary. And, give them some money, give them like $10,000 to get sterilized. I feel like that would help at least somewhat with what sucks in modern society. I mean, there's certainly no shortage of feral, poorly parented children of all races running about. And like I said, it would be strictly voluntary, and you get a pretty penny to do it. Do you think this would be enough to placate the libs, or would they still whine about eugenics? I don't know, because I don't think we will ever know, because I don't think anybody will ever have the balls to put this into the Senate. Okay, Sean D says gravy is for dry turkey. Well, here's what I'm saying. Like, your turkey should not be dry. I mean, if your turkey's dry, then you don't know how to cook. Like, learn how to cook your fucking turkey. Like, learn how to baste it properly. Learn how to, keep it juicy. And just make some goddamn meat. Like, people who slather their food in gravy just don't know how to cook properly. Then it's like, oh, well, my meat's just a dried out hunk of shit. I better slather it in this, fat sludge. Okay, and C-Punk Messiah says, watch Encino Man. It's a Pauly Shore thing. Must I watch a Pauly Shore movie? Well, here I go. I was whining about eugenics, now I'm going to talk about the Pauly Shore thing. I get back to eugenics, I should say. Yeah, I don't know, I feel like the shit libs would be whining about, this totally voluntary, like, vasectomy thing. Everybody can be educated, fucking idiots. The utter denial of reality these people have, it really makes me reaffirm why my politics have shifted. And speaking of, there was an article on Twitter. Jim Tuner kind of agrees. You could pay them $100,000 for sterilization, so to make a big profit. I think $10,000 would do it, to be honest, and wouldn't even break the bank financially in terms of the economy. But yeah, anyway, I was on Twitter. I saw an article in the Tablet, actually. Insert latent anti-Semitism here of you people. I'm not an anti-Semite, but anyway, yeah, it was talking about the turn, and this is a very liberal person who, happened to have shifted their politics rightward. And I'm like, this speaks to me exactly, because, like, this is exactly what I went through. Yeah, I would recommend looking this up. Yeah, it's saying, like, you might be living through the turn if you ever found yourself feeling like free speech should be free, even if it offends somebody, but you can't admit it at dinner with your friends because you're afraid of being thought a bigot. You're living through the turn if you have questions about public health policies, but you can't ask them out loud because they'll label you an anti-vax conspiracy theorist. You're living through the turn if you think that burning down towns and looting stores is not the best way to promote social justice. But if you say so, you'll be called a white supremacist. Okay? And then he goes on, talking about how, like, you are not a supporter of free speech if you oppose free speech for people who disagree with you. You're not for the people if you pit them against each other based on their skin color. You're not serious about economic inequality when you order from Amazon without caring much for the, blah, blah, blah. Jeff Bezos is a fucking Eye of Sauron. I'm like, yes, this is it. Like, I am a former liberal who went rightward myself, and this is it. This is fucking it right here. And I feel like a lot of people are going to be, shifting rightward in the years to come, if we're not seeing that shift already. So, yeah, we're going to have some interesting times. Yeah, C-Punk Messiah says, yeah, fuck cows and their anti-horny propaganda. Yeah, for some reason, like, sometimes messages show up in, like, the chat. They don't show up in the chat, but they show up on the screen itself. I don't know why. But, yeah, we'll just kind of deal with that as it comes. But yeah, speaking of the utter denial of reality some people have, what else is in the news? Apparently, math education is racist, according to the usual suspects. And that's funny, it doesn't seem to stop Asians from being better at math than white people. Or is this one of those instances where Asian people are conveniently considered white people? Finally, the Asian dream has been achieved. But seriously, I have no idea how you can conceive of mathematics as being at all racist. It's math. There's no narrative. There's no politics. It's just numbers. It's as pure and objective a portrayal of reality as you can get. And I say this as somebody who wasn't particularly great in math. Get good at it. This also ties into some nonsense that the governor of Oregon did the other day, removing end-of-the-year exams in high school proficiency to help the students of color. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that extremely racist? I mean, you're literally saying, well, black people are too stupid to pass the exam, so we're just not going to have exams. I mean, that's racist as shit. Like, you've gone so woke, you've literally become a white supremacist. You know, bang up job proving the horseshoe theory, you idiots. Okay, Jim Tooner says, Asians are white people now, at least in the tech industry. Yes, I've seen many things saying that, like, Asians are quote-unquote white adjacent now. Which, I mean, yeah, Asians are basically considered white people. And, you know, considering, like, you know, that the young ladies are into, like, the whole K-pop thing now, I guess, like, the Asian sex bullshit might finally be curing itself. So, yeah, maybe Asians will be considered white people in, you know, 10 or 15 years from now. Who knows? We'll see. Okay, Pauly Shore is sent it to the Wheeze and the Juice subject. I assume he does that in the movie. I have not seen Encino Man. I mean, speaking of Pauly Shore, I did watch Biodome, and I was rooting for him to die in that entire movie. The villain of that movie was absolutely the hero. Sean D says they don't like objectivity because it ruins our argument. Yes, they do. I mean, am I the only one who finds, like, the whole, like, changing the standards for students of color to be extremely racist? Like, I'm not an idiot, right? That does come off as, like, literally saying black people are too dumb to pass the exams. Have I just lost my mind, or is that, like, the most racist thing you've ever heard? I mean, you see, if there's any, you know, school board people or just extremely left-wing people listening, you know, this is why people dump on the critical race theory shit. You know, which says that, like, all of society and its structures are systemically and inherently racist. It's not because, you know, duh, you can't handle the truth about history. No. It's because it's going to inevitably lead to stupid shit like this. Since, according to CRT, everything is systemically racist, we have to uproot society and make things equitable. Note how they don't even use the term equality anymore. It's equity, which is to say equality of outcome being forced instead of just equality of opportunity. And this is what's going to happen, okay? It's going to lead to woke math. It's going to lead to reducing of standards. It's going to lead to we was Kang pseudo-history malarkey. You know, that's why people are against the critical race theory. And this country's going to continue going down the shitter. It's just this fucking country. Then again, the wokists may turn against immigration, considering that another recent Twitter thread I read shows that many immigrant groups, Hispanics in particular, seem to be shifting more conservative in their politics. This might have something to do with the abolish the police crap, I would wager. But all I'm saying is, yeah, don't be surprised in the next 5 years or so if the Democrats start demanding immigration restriction. Okay, let's see. Pony Throat, nice to see you, good sir. How do you think soy society will be affected by 50% of men being lifelong virgins? I don't know about 50% of men being lifelong virgins. I mean, if I recall correctly, like, throughout history, like, less than 50% of men have reproduced, but I don't think 50% of men are going to be virgins for the rest of their lives. I mean, I don't know about that data. But yeah, like, I mean, male virginity and like beta male rage is a problem. Now, you know, it's not going to ever lead to the full-on beta uprising, which I gleefully satirized in my excellent 3-part short story, Der Beta Aufstand hat begonnen, which you all should read on Terror House. But yeah, like with beta male rage, you're going to have a lot of spree shootings, you're going to have a lot of just insanity, whether it be what we have now or, in out and out polygamous societies. You're going to have a lot of men that aren't getting some, or getting some very infrequently, and they're going to be a bit angry. So yeah, it's, Fletch, I didn't see that DKU fight. Sorry if I already addressed it. Yeah, I know I said I would, watch it. I didn't. I'm sorry. Okay. Sean D says, it's the racism of low expectations, or the soft bigotry of low expectations. I agree 100%. Okay, let's see. Jim Tuner says that they, meaning the shitlibs, spin it the other way. They claim that exam scores are no indicator of life success. I mean, they do kind of say that, yeah. They always say, like, IQ tests only prove how good you are at IQ tests, which is kind of interesting considering that, professional sports leagues in the military seem to be okay with IQ tests. But, I'm sure they know better. Yeah, it's people trying to find problems in everything. Hold on. I've seen a few of those, Shu Xiaodong, fights and stuff. I might have seen it. I want to look it up, see if it's one of the ones I've seen before. Let's see. Is it DKU versus Bradley Scott? Or is it I guess so, because it's the most recent one. Okay, first of all, just looking at this, thumbnail, I'm pretty sure this guy is not in the same weight class as his opponent. This guy's clearly at least 30 pounds heavier than the other guy, so I don't know if this is fair exactly. Yeah, I've not seen this one, and yeah, I'll be sure to watch it. Okay. Let's see. Ponythrower says the difference between cultural enrichment and Nazi invasion is which one voter decision. Okay. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll have to check that fight out because it looks pretty. It looks like it's gonna be an absolute clown show, which I enjoy the occasional freak show fight, but we'll see. But yeah, on the plus side of education, which I was talking about the negatives of it, I was also, again, on Twitter the other day. I go on Twitter fairly frequently. It's pretty much the only social media I do use. It led to a website, this thread, on physical culture, the history and archaeology of people researching fitness and getting swole in the ancient times. I mean, you all know this is something I'm really into, and I learned some stuff. I genuinely had no idea that Confucius was apparently a strong man who lifted the bars of city gates just to prove his swollenness, which is making me formulate an axiom that nobody should listen to any philosopher that isn't also jacked. I mean, Confucius, Socrates, Plato, they were all pretty swole. I mean, they were men that got their hands dirty. They lifted big iron, or more likely stone and wood and bronze by day, and they wrote philosophy and pondered metaphysics by night. Let's remind us all that one of the 6 skills of the Confucian gentleman was archery, and contrary to what the media will tell you, skinny little girls are not good archers. A good archer is a very large, muscular man. Plato was a Pancratian champion. Plato was actually a nickname that meant broad shoulders. And look who philosophizes for us today. A bunch of soft-handed geeks, and they wonder why nobody cares about philosophy anymore. Yeah, sorry for the hard gear shift, but, There should be no jock-nerd dichotomy. A complete man can be a jock and a nerd at once. A competent man, as Robert Heinlein would put it, and I am proud to be an emissary of the nerd jocks. Speaking of Robert Heinlein, I guess I have a book recommendation for you people. Astounding by Alec Lee, or is it Alec Nevins Lee? Just let me look that up on my phone, because yeah, I totally bought the book. Wink, wink. It's Alec Navala Lee. Yes, it's a biography of John W. Campbell, as well as a biography of the astounding science fiction magazine itself, and also the three writers he most influenced, which is to say Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov, and L. Ron Hubbard. It pulls no punches. It shows all four men at their best and worst. Like I said, it's really more of a biography of astounding science fiction as a magazine in and of itself. It's really good, even though the author, of course, has to whine about, the white male-dominated science fiction world. And he even throws a little bit of shade at Vox Day, old Teddy Spaghetti, and that whole, rabid puppy thing, or was it sad puppy? I so don't care. Because let's be honest, that whole thing was just Vox whining about not getting an award. And, even though a lot of modern science fiction is dog shit, roller coaster sex dragons, yeah, he was Voxy boy. He was calling for a Campbellian resurgence of science fiction. I mean, to an extent, I do kind of agree with Vox Day, even though he is a fucking clown. I mean, you all know my dismal opinion of woke sci-fi and fantasy, and that it sucks ass. Okay, let's see. Got a lot of chats here. So, do you think that a balance of both liberal and conservative ideas is ideal, says C-Punk Messiah? I mean, it personally works for me. I mean, I, lean conservative in a lot of things, but I do have liberal ideas in terms of, labor relations and things like that. I mean, I don't want to just be like some bland loser, be like, you should be a moderate. But, I do think that a healthy society has, that sort of hedonist, like sort of bohemian, liberal edge to it, and, a conservative functioning core. You have to keep the country from both stagnating and being a complete, shit show. Valentinus asks, why don't philosophers lift anymore? I don't know. They should. Being jacked helped their philosophy and having a clear mind. I agree, Sean D. Yeah, Plato saw physical exercise and preparing for war as a fundamental part of a philosophical life. Yeah, and like Socrates himself, I actually have that quote in the meme reel. It's what is it? I mean, it'll come up eventually, but I will just read it now. No man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty of strength of which his body is capable. Okay, C-Punk Messiah says, we need a Shu Xiaodong type of dressed as Dan Hibiki from Street Fighter. That would be funny. Yes. Yeah, Confucius was a scholar, and to me, he was also a pussy because he was a scholar. No, like I said, like, a Confucian gentleman had to, have martial skills. He had to be a good archer and a charioteer. And, driving a chariot is, something that requires a lot of upper body strength too. And like I said, there is historical record of him, like, lifting, like, the bars of city gates just for the hell of it. And okay, Ponythroat asks, what are your thoughts on furries? I don't have a problem with them. I mean, it's a sexual subculture that I have no interest in, but, if that's your deal, you just do it behind closed doors, and I won't have a problem with you. And yes, Jim Tuner, Vox Day is, he has some good, he points out some problems that are legitimate, but yeah, he's a fucking clown. But yeah, going back to the whole woke sci-fi thing, I'm against it to a large extent. I mean, this is not me being an evil white male who doesn't want to see POCs in the stories. I mean, I would love to see people of color in speculative fiction. I mean, I've repeatedly argued that Charles Saunders' Imaro stories, they ought to be just as well known as Conan or Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, because that's how you do, people of color in fantasy the right way. He saw that there weren't, black people in the fantasy stories he liked, so he wrote his own original stories, drawing from African history and mythology to create his own mythos, the black man as a hero. Like, that's how you fucking do I dare I say, woke fantasy the right way. Legend of the Condor Heroes, another story, which is done by a Chinese author, Jin Yong. He attempted to synthesize ancient Chinese mythology and history into a modern mythology, just like Tolkien did with Germanic and Anglo-Saxon mythology and history for Lord of the Rings. And that's great. Legend of the Condor Heroes should be better known. He basically legitimized wuxia as an actual art form, just like Tolkien legitimized fantasy as an artistic medium. I think the only person that Jin Yong can be compared to is Tolkien. If you want to celebrate POC creators in speculative fiction, I mean, here's two good places to start. But, I've never seen anybody promoting these people, these fucking hacks, screaming for woke fantasy. What do they inevitably do? They just take old material and just shit all over it, shoehorning in people of color and pointless sex scenes and idiot white male bashing. Shortly before this stream started, I was listening to Chapo Trap House talking about H.P. Lovecraft. Or rather, I listened to about 5 minutes of it before I was disgusted and shut it off. They're like, yeah, he was basically just an incel, just a white male incel. Yuck, yuck. Okay, Ponythroat says, still waiting on the RPG where the darker you make your skin tone, the more intelligence points you lose. I mean, the South Park games, they kind of did that as a joke, where like you have less money if you make your character black, and it makes like police like come after you more often. So that's, I guess there's your option. You can play South Park like the Stick of Truth, and the Fractured But Whole. But yeah, the fucking Chapo Trap House shitting on Lovecraft. Yeah, those fucking losers. I mean, look, Lovecraft was a racist, and yeah, he was probably just a pretty unpleasant human being to be around. But you know what else Lovecraft was? He was a man that had more talent in one of his pubic hairs than an entire auditorium of woke sci-fi writers could ever dream of having. I mean, he can only be compared to Poe in terms of his sheer influence in popular culture. I mean, those Chapo Trap House dickheads were shitting on Robert Howard, too. Like, he was just fat. Yeah, Robert Howard was a semi-pro boxer when he wasn't writing. Yeah, he was a little tubby, but he got paid to knock people the fuck out. Like, why do you think his fight scenes were so good? Because he knew the savage exultation of combat. And yeah, I'll be honest, in a way that George R.R. Martin never did. Like, why do you think the battle scenes in Tolkien and Robert Howard are so good? Because they knew what it was like to fight. And I know I've argued this as well, that a good writer should know what he's writing about. And if you're going to write fight scenes, you better know what combat's like. But bear in mind that Chapo Trap House, sorry, these morons also went on record on Twitter saying, Theodore Roosevelt wasn't tough. He was just perceived to be tough because back then, being fat made you tough. Yeah, meanwhile, the guy who said that is a fat-bodied loser with massive spinal kyphosis, anterior pelvic tilt, and he dresses like a baby. No, Theodore Roosevelt wasn't fat. I'm sorry, no, fat. No, Theodore Roosevelt wasn't tough. I mean, he just, walked off being shot and stabbed a cougar to death. But, some fucking podcaster's gonna lecture me on being tough. Okay, let's see. Okay, Ponythroat says H.P. Lovecraft's theories of racial hierarchy were as autistic as everything else about him. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he did become somewhat less racist if you kind of chart his writing. He he showed some respect for Chinese people. He showed some respect for Native Americans. I mean, he pretty much hated black people just continuously throughout his life. But But yeah, Lovecraft's racial views are a little more complex than that. And yeah, Jim, I mean, I know Lovecraft was married. I know he was married. The morons at Chapo Trap House were the ones saying he was an incel. Okay, Fletch Kilman says, you're very happy for me to be back. Yes, I'm very happy to be back too. I mean, the breakup with my ex-girlfriend, or ex-fiance I should say, did throw me for a bit of a loop. I had to take a year off just to get my shit together. But yeah, I'm back. I'm back in the game sexually. Got a new lady in my life. Things are going pretty good. Yeah, I say that as I just got a scathing review in my music teaching from the fucking fat bitch mom of one of my students. Bear in mind, this woman threatened to murder me if I parked in her parking spot again the first time I was there. And, you know, also I had to drive across the fucking Cross Bronx Expressway for this bitch. Yeah, you know what? I got 58 reviews. 50 of them are 5 stars, and then the other 8 are not so good. So, you know, fuck this bitch. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, other than that, job's going pretty good. Everything's going good. Valentina says H.P. Lovecraft is living off beans and cabbage and had hallucinations from his poor diet. That's a distinct possibility. Raymond Reinhardt says hello. Hello, good sir. George R.R. Martin looks like an old fisherman you'd find on a dockside pud in 1930. Yeah, I mean, George R.R. Martin's just a big fatty. I mean, I don't think he's ever worked on the docks. And yeah, Lovecraft was also racist towards himself because he was part Welsh. Yes, that's also true. But yes, speaking of media inanity, and I guess Chapo Trap House could be considered part of the media since they basically parrot everything we're supposed to believe in, even though they try to present themselves as being cool and edgy, you know, the dirtbag left. But yeah, the Huffington Post had a couple of humdingers this week. An article by some woman saying, I am an ethical pimp. I run an escort agency. I wasn't aware there was ethical pimping now. I mean, I have my doubts about that. Look, I've discussed this before, but yeah, I fucking hate whoremongers. And yeah, I don't use the term pimp in my own discourse because, you know, pimp sounds like some soft, cutesy bullshit, and it hides what pieces of garbage a whoremonger is. And yeah, I don't think there's any way you can go about pimping ethically. I mean, at best, you're taking a cut of the money they make while giving them nothing in return. And at worst, I'd wager they're doing the same sex trafficking and beating and forced drug addiction that every other pimp does. I mean, this ethical pimp, as I said before, happens to be a lady. But I have no illusions that women can't abuse women, because absolutely they can. I mean, all I'm saying is the most famous female pimp in history is probably Ghislaine Maxwell. And, yeah, she's in court right now. And there was also some HuffPo article about some white presenting black woman and the things that evil white people tell her when they think she's white. I recall that documentary series Saturday Night Live did something similar in the 80s. Yeah, I'm not doubting that these people said these things to her, but I mean, this is all anecdotal. I'm not entirely sure what makes this particular woman get an article out of any other person. I mean, I guess, you know, we just need to fulfill the, you know, white people are mean to me quota, which we're going to see a lot more of in the future, I suppose. Oh, and again, this woman claims that critical race theory is just presenting history truthfully. Again, no it isn't. I work in the public schools. I've seen the revisionist crap they want to present as truth if they had a chance to. And it really is like full-on, you know, we was Kang's gobshite. And do bear in mind that I've never once deviated from my position of history should be presented warts and all. But that's not the same thing as focus on nothing but the warts and then make up some new warts to go along with the actual warts. And I'm curious as to whether or not they want famous POCs to be portrayed warts and all. Oh, of course they wouldn't. And again, I am 10,000% in favor of warts and all, but for everybody. Either you do it for everybody or you do it for nobody. And I would vastly prefer if you did it for everybody because I'm not a hero worshiper. Okay, Elizabeth Bathory, she murdered over 500 women, and Jim said that, yeah, George R.R. Martin was the son of a longshoreman, but yeah, he's been a fat nerd his whole life. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Elizabeth Bathory was not a female pimp, but yeah, she killed a lot of women. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't a lot of women say that they prefer to work for men as bosses instead of women because women are just like super bitchy and like judgmental? Yeah, Robert Leonard says if we presented history warts and all, that would be in danger of making history interesting. Yeah, God forbid that happen. I mean, that's the last thing we want. Yeah, what else happened this week? The Prime Minister, Prime Ministress, I guess, of Finland, Minatrix, she went out clubbing and left her phone at home. This is a problem because she was getting calls telling her that her ass needs to go to quarantine. Bang up job, Finland. Why is your Prime Minister going out clubbing at 4 a.m.? I will say, though, that the broads that run Finland are actually pretty good looking. There's more than you can say for us. Yeah, I have no idea why basically every American female politician is a total dog, but yeah, there you go. In fact, I'll just say it. America's political women, they just throughout history have just been the most uninspiring bunch of hags that history has ever produced. But, you know, we're not allowed to be proud of the men in American history because somebody's going to get offended for some reason. So everything ultimately ends up being I butchered that one. So everything ultimately ends up being named after some mediocre biddy who installed a bus stop or something like that. Okay, Raymond Reinhardt asks, what videos do you have coming up next for the channel? Well, I do have something hopefully coming up for next week. It's, let's just say it's about politics, and we'll leave it at that. And then, you know, I do have some stuff that people have requested, which are on the back burner. Like I have I'm going to do a video on Hard Rock Nick, on some other, like, you know, goofballs. So, yeah, there's definitely stuff coming. Like I said, I do the live streams, you know, more so than the videos nowadays, just because I'm really busy. But yeah, there's going to be some shit coming. So stay patient, people. But yeah, like when I said that everything ultimately ends up being named after some lady who installed a bus stop, that's basically literally what happens. Palo Alto shows an example of this. A few years ago, there was a big kerfuffle over a middle school that needed to be renamed. So why did it need to be renamed? It was first named Terman Middle School, after Lewis and Fred Terman. Fred Terman being a Stanford engineering professor who's a mentor of Hewlett and Packard, you know, the computer guys. He was instrumental in developing radar technology for World War II. His father, Lewis Terman, was a creator of the first standardized IQ test, the Stanford Binet test. I mean, these guys are literally the founding fathers of Silicon Valley. And, you know, of note is that the Terman Middle School was, like, legit, like, one of the highest performing middle schools, like, I think in the country on standardized exams. So, you know, it's pretty fitting that a guy who developed an IQ test would be, you know, the namesake of a school. Okay, Sean D. Tulsi Gabbard is okay. Yeah, she's not bad looking. But yeah, she's not. I mean, she's like the one exception. Okay, Robert Leonard says, thank you for the phrase school marms from hell. I've used it frequently. Yeah, the school marm thing is an issue. A long-term project of mine, I'll just say it is, I want to write like a history of like American school marming, you know, from like the colonial days onward. But yeah, that's a long-term project. And now I'm afraid somebody's going to steal my idea. But you know what? Honestly, wouldn't be too upset if somebody did, considering that this is a topic that really needs to be discussed, even if it's not me doing it. But yeah, back to the school thing. You know, we can't have the Termans be the namesake of a school because, you know, oh no, IQ testing's bad. And his dad was like kind of a eugenicist. Ray. So they voted to change the name. People started fighting over what to name it. The most likely next candidate was to change it to the Yamamoto Middle School, named after Fred Yamamoto, a Nisei who won the Medal of Honor posthumously fighting in the famous 442nd Infantry in World War II. But no, we couldn't have that because Yamamoto is the same name as Admiral Yamamoto, and that would offend Korean and Chinese people. You can't name it Terman, you can't name it Yamamoto. So you name it after Palo Alto City Councilwoman Ellen Fletcher, who was instrumental in installing bike lanes to the city. Because that's really fucking inspiring, isn't it? I mean, who could possibly be inspired by a genius computer pioneer or a war hero? Fucking bike lanes is where it's at. I mean, that's the schoolmarm thing in action. All sports teams will be named after Cougars and Panthers, and all schools will be named after women who installed bike lanes. Okay, this country needs less Eric Konevskys and more Jason Blahas. Who the hell's Eric Konevsky? Let me look that up. Okay, Eric Konevsky says... okay, Eric Konevsky is a bodybuilder, some such. Okay, he's a social media guy who does something or other. Well, he seems like certainly more of a legit bodybuilder than Jason Blaha, certainly. I haven't even heard of this person. But yeah, speaking of American female politicians and their mediocrity, I learned the other day, according to people on Twitter quoting some presumably bitchy Hollywood homosexual, that Nancy Reagan was apparently quite the whiz at sucking dicks. You know, I have no idea if this is true or not. I don't know who this person is that was her biographer, but it's not impossible is all I'm saying. I mean, I don't put it past any woman. Apparently, so the claim goes, and again, I don't know for sure, when Nancy Reagan, then known as Nancy Davis, was trying to cut it as an actress before she met old Ronnie Reagan, she was renowned for slurping a mean pole, according to, again, this bitchy Hollywood homosexual unauthorized biographer. And I mean no offense to bitchy Hollywood homosexuals, they're a lot of fun. George Cukor was a very talented director is all I'm saying. Okay, pony throat. Historically, do you think public hangings were popular? Because by and large, watch people dance on ropes made the crowd shoot ropes. No, I think it was supposed to be a deterrent / entertainment for people whose only other options for entertainment were like watching a donkey walk around in a circle. So, yeah, I'm sure somebody jacked off to it, but I don't think that was very common is all I'm saying. Okay, Brad Castleberry is the best bodybuilder ever. He breaks records every day. You know, I don't know why Brad Castleberry has to like pretend to be this world record breaker who uses the fake weights, which he totally does, considering he's the only person in the gym using octagonal plates. I mean, looking at Brad Castleberry, I mean, he's pretty built. I'm sure he has pretty decent lifts and stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure he could be a pretty famous e-celeb just being himself and being truthful. I have no idea why he feels the need to lie so much. But yeah, Brad Castleberry is a complete dingleberry. But yeah, back to the horrifying Nancy Reagan thing. The issue was the fact that some content creator, who's apparently Ben Shapiro's sister, from what I gathered, she was comparing Madonna to Nancy Reagan as trash versus class, respectively. And, oh God, that's a choice. It's like, do I want to swim in an ocean of piss, swim under it, or do I want to stick my head out for air only to have a bucket of shite dumped on my head? I mean, look, Madonna's a pain in the ass who should really, really, really stop trying to be sexy. You're old enough to be my grandmother. But, yeah, on the other hand, anybody who listens to my videos or shows is well aware that I have little love for the whole Reagan family. Especially Ronnie, you know, the original neocons. I mean, like, I appreciate the Reagan years just because it was the only time when, like, you could have, like, the totally, like, coked out insanity of the action movies and, like, you know, bad dudes with attitudes and stuff. And I guess to some slight degree, Ronnie Reagan was responsible for that, but yeah, fuck Reagan. Yeah, it's, you know, send soldiers overseas for no reason. Let's, you know, have a fucking amnesty for illegal immigration. It's all that trickle down shit. Fuck Reagan, alright? Fuck anybody who likes Reagan. Yeah, I suppose Madonna and Nancy Reagan are on the same level as actresses. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Madonna's literally only done one movie where she was at least somewhat tolerable, and that was Dick Tracy. Okay, Ponythroat says a third of the attendees at public hangings were cranking one out. I don't think so, buddy. But, you know, I enjoy our repartees nonetheless. You know, all this shitting on, like, American political women being hags. That's not to say that American men are exactly Adonises either. I mean, it seems like you can't even get into American government without being a fat, high-cholesterol putz who can't see his own dick. And this ties back into what I was talking about with the philosophers. I mean, I don't trust anybody that doesn't take at least the bare minimum to take care of themselves physically. I mean, I'm not talking about, like, you know, somebody who, you know, has a little bit of a belly, but they're otherwise in shape. Like, there's a lot of, you know, kind of chunky guys in my jiu-jitsu gym that could tie me up into knots. But yeah, how can I expect you to responsibly steward the country if you can't responsibly steward yourself? And no, don't say Paul Ryan. I've seen those glamour pics he did with his little chicken legs. And that's something that really annoys me. I don't trust anybody who claims to be a fitness guy and has got little skinny chicken legs. I mean, maybe it's an inane prejudice, but yeah, it's that's a prejudice I have. Sorry, just gotta respond to a text message. There we go. Yeah, you gotta get on that bike pill. Yeah, boy, this is a fitness-heavy podcast this week. I didn't plan on this. Gotta get on that bike pill. Bike anywhere where the round trip is less than 10 miles, I say. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. People who have irrational hatred of bikers, you're just a complete piece of shit. I will never understand this, like, problem. Okay, Ponythroat, what about William Howard Taft? You know, Taft was, you know, he was fat, but, like, I guess it was, like, just different food back then. He wasn't, like, you know, like saggy, grotesque fat. Like, that's really my issue. Like, the guys who are just, like, these, you know, sweaty, haggard, like, saggy sacks of shit. Like, that kind of fatness, like, is what I'm really against. Taft was, like, presentable fat, I guess. Yeah, like, but yeah, like, I don't understand why everybody hates bicyclists. You know, all those comedians who are like, hey, what are you, riding a bike, you fucking asshole? You're gonna get exercise and save the environment? You're gonna save money? You know, what are you, some kind of faggot? You're gonna go fuck a man in the ass when you're done riding your bike? I'm gonna run them over, herder. It's like, well, yes, I am getting exercise, and I am saving the environment, and I am saving money, and I am better than you in every single way, you fat tub of shit driving in your car. Yeah, I'm not saying everybody needs to bike like 50 miles a day, but if the round trip is a reasonable distance, like 10 miles or so, yeah, I bike it. I don't see what's wrong with that. I also use a single speed bike, not because I'm a hipster asshole, but because it was the only bike they had available at the store. Okay, question. Raymond Reinhardt says, minus the Indian Removal Act, what are your thoughts on Andrew Jackson? Well, I think the Indian Removal Act is a very important thing to discuss. Uh, Jackson is a mixed bag. I mean, I've always had sort of a begrudging respect for Andrew Jackson. I mean, in the same way I have a begrudging respect for, like, the Doom guy, I guess. I mean, the Battle of New Orleans is, a lot of people would say, well, I mean, the Battle of New Orleans was super impressive, a feat, both philosophically and, militarily. I mean, the fact that Jackson could so get over his deeply ingrained prejudices to, organize that defense. And a lot of people say, well, anybody would do that. No, they really wouldn't. Most people don't give up their racial prejudices even when they're about to die. And, don't sell that short that he was capable of doing so. I mean, I certainly, in favor of, some of like the financial things he did. The Indian Removal Act is obviously not good, and that should, be judged. He should be judged for that, certainly. But, I put it this way. Uh, Romanians consider Vlad the Impaler to be a hero. Mongolians consider Genghis Khan to be a hero. So I don't think it's irrational to, like, consider Andrew Jackson, somebody worthy of at least some admiration. That's just my opinion. Okay, Vorvox Model 1 says they need to stay in spin class, not on the road. No, I disagree. I'm going to bike where I please. And, I'm not going to, like, I try to stay on, like, sort of the shoulder of the road if I can, but, I'm biking. Deal with it. Ponythroat asks, do you think that the climate alarmism is an excuse to reduce the living standards of the wage slave caste? A little bit. Considering that they're also pushing, the soy and the impossible burgers and the bug eating. Yeah, I can definitely see that. But, like I said, I am very much concerned with the environment just because I happen to live in the environment. But I don't see why you can't have both, environmentalism and living wages for the wage slaves. All I'm saying is back in the 50s, a corporate CEO made like 60 times what his employees made. Now it's like 800 plus times. But yeah, back to the bikes. Honestly, I like the single speed bikes. They're very robust and hardy. I've always said the more moving parts you have, the more potential there is for something to go wrong. And that simplifies everything. With a 10-speed bike or a mountain bike, whatever, the gear shifts, you got the gear shifts and the brake cables and stuff. I mean, there's a million things that can go wrong. With the single speed, at worst you got to replace the chain. And the brakes are just friction. Okay, C-Punk Messiah says, do you think learning how to fight should be a mandatory life skill? Absolutely, 100%. I mean, my biggest regret in learning martial arts now is that I didn't start when I was like 5. I just feel like a lot of suffering and like just miserable childhood toil could have been saved if I had done so. Yeah, absolutely. I think every kid should be like taught like some kind of wrestling or some kind of martial art. Maybe little kids shouldn't be doing like boxing or taking punches to the face, but definitely I think little kids should be doing some kind of wrestling or jiu-jitsu or judo. Absolutely. Okay, Vorvox Model says, I was 5 and able to ride in the grass. Well, sometimes there's not grass, or yeah, I do ride in the grass when I can, but sometimes there's not. Well, Ponythroat says they want the toilers to ride bikes because cars are too good for you. I mean, yeah, that is part of it, but I think, if everybody owned a house and ate like real food and was biking, I think that would be okay. It's all like kind of coming at once. It's like, living in the pods and eating bugs and eating soy. And, biking, like all that together kind of makes it. Vorvox says, after riding, you go to women's self-defense class. Yes, I do actually. I bring my little whistle and I learned how to kick people in the balls and scream rape. Yes, I'm a graduate of the women's self-defense class. And yeah, way to, have the same mindset as like every like shitty hack comedian. You're gonna ride a bike, you're gonna go, ride some dude's ass afterwards. What a faggot. Shut up. Yeah, look, you scream, you kick them in the balls, and you scream rape, all right? That's how you do it. Yeah, I mean, I've already mastered the, that's my purse, I don't know you technique. Okay, Pony Throat says, sawing off shotgun, hitting up the sleeve is the ultimate martial art. Yeah, I will not address that. I'm not down with the school shootings. And, single speeds are underrated. Yeah, when you get down to it, I mean, part of the reason I like single speeds is because, I have the sensibilities of like a shaved Yeti or, one of the Ogrins from Warhammer 40,000. For those of you who aren't aware, the Ogrins are these big, dumb meatheads who have to use guns and armor that's chunky and thick and simplified, because otherwise they would break them. I've never actually played a game of 40K. My friend Bill from high school, he played Warhammer. And by that, I mean he apparently spent most of his time painting those stupid little miniatures. I do find the lore and the backstory of 40K interesting, so I have read some like the little novels and stuff. But I did play some Dungeons and Dragons with Bill and the other nerdlingers I was friends with in school, so I'm not a stranger to tabletop games if any of you are into that. And speaking of nerd shit, Netflix's shitty Cowboy Bebop remake has officially been canceled after 1 month of existing. Yeah, who didn't see that coming? I didn't watch that crap, so I don't know if they tried to make it woke, but I'll just assume it was just not good. Which, most live-action adaptations of cartoons are not good. And we all kind of knew it was going to be bad from the trailer. I mean, I guess one point of wokeness it had was that Faye's costume was like much less revealing because, God forbid we have a woman, portrayed sexually anymore. I've also noticed recently there's been a lot of articles saying like, it's not supposed to be good. Yeah, I saw an article that was like, the Cowboy Bebop show isn't good, but it's not supposed to be. Or that new Wheel of Time, it's not supposed to be good. I mean, I don't even know what the hell this is. Like, why are these kind of articles that are like running interference for shitty shows? Like, is the show not allowed to be shit anymore? I don't know. I mean, is this the end result of the everybody gets a trophy mentality? Sean D says Max bike from Sunny in Philadelphia was super manly. What, the ass pounder 4000? Oh yeah, totally. Okay, speaking of celebrity news, Jussie Smollett is guilty. Like I predicted, it'll be an open and shut case. Let's see how he gets punished. I mean, making nuisance police calls, attempting to frame others for a crime. I mean, I'm not sure if you can get arrested for trying to frame, like, imaginary white people for the crime. I mean, I think these are at the very least minor felonies. He should get at least, like, a year or so in prison. Frankly, I think a major problem with the American legal system is that there aren't consequences for the loser of a suit. Like, the loser of a lawsuit doesn't pay the winner, and I think he should. That would certainly make frivolous lawsuits much less common. Okay. Pony Throat saying a show is not meant to be good is like saying a British tank is not meant to be used in war. Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, yet somehow the British tanks were not the worst ones in the war. I mean, it could have been worse for the British, is all I'm saying. They could have gone to war in like those little go-karts the Italians were driving. Or the Bob Semple. Okay, Raymond Reinhardt says, what are your thoughts on the state of hand-to-hand combatives in the military? To be honest, I'm not super familiar with them. Like, I've seen, like, videos and such. I mean, I'm sure, your average, like, Marine or whatever could throw down halfway decently. But, I mean, considering this whole, like, woke shit they're doing with the military now, it might not be so good in the future. But yeah, I don't profess to be an expert in this field. Okay, and finally, in terms of absolute pop culture flotsam, we're going to go back to Twitter. Apparently, people are surprised to learn that Jerry of Tom and Jerry fame is actually named Jerome Mouse. And to that I say, well, no shit. I mean, Jerry is only ever going to be short for Jerome or Gerald. Yeah, sorry again for the hard gear shift. Does it surprise you that Tom's full name is Thomas? I mean, the cartoons at least make that pretty goddamn clear. And yeah, the reason I bring this up is because apparently Black Twitter jumped on this because apparently Jerome is a stereotypical black name. I mean, I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I put Jerome into Twitter and, like, Jerry Lawler's Twitter account was the first result. Like, is he a black man now? Or do all old school wrestlers earn honorary black passes? I mean, I know Ric Flair does. I mean, black people kind of appropriated names like Lamont and Tyrone for themselves, so, whatever. I guess Jerome is a black name now, too. Okay. C-Punk Messiah says, the ultimate martial art is anything goes martial arts on the Ranma half series. We learn everything and everything about fighting. Isn't there, like, cross-dressing in that show? I mean, I've never actually watched it myself. And Ponythroat says, hand to Wad of Yuan in the upper ranks of the military. Yeah, you got that right. And then, of course, as is inevitable for Twitter, this stupid discourse about Tom and Jerry inevitably devolved into lectures about the racism of the woman in the Tom and Jerry cartoons. Oh no, she's a stereotype of a black maid. Well, they never refer to her as a maid, so, you can pretend she owns the house, so that makes you feel better. But no, we gotta make the children's shows politically correct. Because God forbid the children watch anything good. They gotta watch the flat CalArts dog shit about annoying fat boys and their lesbian space mommies. Goddamn Steven Universe sucks ass. I mean, I'm hardly breaking new ground discussing that, but yeah, I'd hate to be a little kid and have that as my option on TV. Okay, Sean D says, wasn't Jerry seen as the good guy in those tunes? What's their gripe? I don't know, it's just there's like mild racist elements in the old cartoons, because of course there are. I don't know, it's the cartoon discourse is pretty goddamn stupid. But I mean, I guess Tom and Jerry is still technically a thing. I mean, they made that movie a while ago, which I heard was the definition of meh. I mean, I have no idea how you can even do a Tom and Jerry movie the right way, quote unquote. I mean, apparently they've tried it twice and it sucked ass both times. I mean, the only thing I can imagine would be to make it like fucking Shoot 'em Up or like Hardcore Harry or Fury Road, but with cartoons. I don't mean in terms of blood and stuff, but just in that sort of just relentless adrenaline rush kind of filmmaking. Just 2 hours of nonstop slapstick cartoonishness. I'm not necessarily saying it would be, good. But that's the only way I could conceive of it having the spirit of the franchise and being any good. I mean, it's like that Popeye the Sailor Man movie that Sony keeps canceling and uncanceling with Gendy Tartakovsky attached to it. And yeah, I'm talking about cartoons. I'm a 30-year-old man. I don't give a fuck. I like animation as an artistic medium. I mean, I have no idea how they could even attempt to do a Popeye movie in 2021 because apparently you're not allowed to let them just knock people the fuck out anymore. And really, if you're not going to allow Popeye to just punch people, then just give up and don't bother. Because if you're like, yeah, we got to make this franchise less violent and more politically correct, yet you've already failed on a fundamental level to understand the franchise. Like, just go home. You failed. Okay, Ponythroat says, I'd always thought Tom and Jerry were named after nicknames for British and German soldiers during the World Wars. It's a possibility. Yeah. I mean, with that, I think I'm kind of done unless somebody else has something to say. So I'll just kind of fart around for a little bit while you guys kind of discuss amongst yourselves. Okay, it doesn't look like anybody's got anything else to say, so I guess now it's been about an exact hour and a half, so I think now is about as good a time as any to cut it out. So, for Larsen Halleck. Wait. Okay, Ponythroat says, Popeye, the show about a mentally disabled man being goaded into violence by women manipulating him using spinach-induced fury. Yeah. That's pretty much, I mean, why else do you think it resonates with me so much? Any cartoon that advocates proper nutrition and hand-to-hand combat to solve all your problems, I mean, that's the good shit right there. And, you know, since I want to play, like, amateur filmmaker here, how would I do a Popeye movie? Well, for starters, I would basically block out and choreograph like 5 to 10 big, you know, knockdown, drag-out fight scenes with various ruffians, each one lasting between 2 to 10 minutes. The 10-minute one would be the finale, of course, and just basically make the movie around the fistfights. And really, all you need is just enough of a plot to justify why there's such senseless violence going on. I mean, I want at least a solid 40 minutes of that movie to just be punching. Because that's the goddamn hero the children need. Okay, C-Punk Messiah says, cross-dressing and gender swapping aside, the martial philosophy still stands. The main character did not stick to one fighting style. He adapted to many styles. All right, yeah. I mean, I might have to take a look at it. I've never watched Ranma Half. Okay, Vorvox says this is a 9 out of 10 show. Thank you. Jim Tuner says, would you do a video about the... I'm sorry, I'm laughing at what Ponythroat just said. Yeah, Popeye needs to be played by Mark Wahlberg. Bluto be an old Vietnamese man. Well, it would be animated. I mean, I don't think the voices would really match. Yeah, I don't think Mac could play Popeye very well. Jim Tuner, would you do a video about the oddness of Antonio Inoki? It's a possibility. Ricky Hoya, Genndy Tartakovsky made the only Adam Sandler movies that are likable. Excuse me, sir, I will not have you disparaging The Waterboy. Thank you very much. Then again, I might like The Waterboy because my life has resembled that movie at various points, but we'll get into that some other time. Raymond Reinhardt says, how do I feel about the debate about cracking down on fighting in hockey? I didn't know they were doing that. I don't watch hockey very often. Fighting protects star players from cheap shots. I mean, I think fighting is kind of an integral part of the game, so yeah, I don't know. I would not crack down on it myself. Will I make a video on MLP Vor in society? Is MLP still like really a thing? I mean, I know it was super big for a while, but I know the Friendship is Magic show kind of ended a couple of years ago. I mean, is it as big as it once was? I haven't really heard about it much, to be honest. Okay, so again, get your this is your last chance to get your words in, so you can say what you got to say. Yeah, Ponythroat says MLP is dead. Many people find that fact hard to digest. Well, let's not eat the horses. Okay, Jim Tuner. It's big as a degenerate subculture. I did watch some episodes just to see what all the fuss was about, and I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, that was the early like first 2 seasons, I think. I watched some episodes from that. It wasn't that bad, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it became more and more degenerate. I don't know. And I would have thought that like the weirdos would have moved on to some other shit. Okay, Raymond Reinhardt says, thank you for doing these. This is my first one, and I'll tune in when I can. Yeah, most likely I am, doing these every Sunday at the same time, 2 p.m. Occasionally, I'll do a video instead. But yeah, most of it's going to be live streams. Okay, Jim Tuner says that the fans of My Little Pony are degenerates, not the show. Yeah, I didn't really find anything particularly objectionable about the show. Then again, I also didn't see why all the fuss about it. I mean, it was decent, but it was an above average kids show, and I guess I didn't really understand why it had such a big fan base. Ponythroat asks, "What flavor of Asian are you? Chinese by way of Taiwan. My grandparents didn't want to live under the filthy Chi-Com, so yeah." Okay, and again, if nobody's going to have any more questions, I will be heading out. For Larsen Halleck, I'm Larsen Halleck. Have a good day, everybody.